Today's Japanese slang term is Jigo-Kaiwai, which is going to take us on a bit of a journey. For those of you who don't have time for that, this refers to the group, Kaiwai, after the thing. And in this case, the thing is intercourse. Now then, let's get into where this comes from and what's going on, because this term is different from all the ones that I've covered in that usually I'm like 6 months to 10 years behind the date, and this word is happening right now. And what this means is that there's very little information out about it. So in order to make this video, I had to basically carve my own way through the jungle here. And so there's going to be a lot of digressions. Dasen is a useful Japanese vocab you can learn from this video. I'm going to do my best to explain everything that's out there, given that there's very little out there to help me in this journey. Indeed, two common sources that I use, the Pixiv Dictionary and Nico-Nicopedia, have nothing on this yet. So let's start at the beginning. A few weeks ago, I made a video on Furo Counselor Kaiwai, which led to this person commenting on this video, thanking me for helping them understand it. Now in this video, the guy with the microphone walks around and shoves it in people's faces and asks what Kaiwai they are. And one of the Kaiwais that gets mentioned a few times is Jigo-Kaiwai. Now when I first saw this, I had no idea what it was talking about because it's just the after thing group, right? And technically, I guess everyone on Earth is a member of the after thing group because we've all done something. But it turns out, news to me, that Jigo can be used in Japanese as a euphemism for after sex. And this is not slang at all. I was able to find uses dating back to the early 2000s, and just out of curiosity, I asked some Japanese people I know in their 40s, 50s, if they knew about this use back when they were, say, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, it was a little awkward, but they all said, oh yeah, absolutely, this is not like slang, it's just a thing. You can think of it as very similar to the use of it in English, you know, after we did it. Could be anything, but often is 18 plus. This doesn't help too much though, because Japanese people have, been engaging in intercourse for around 2,000 years, if not more. But what we need to find out is when this became a kaiwai, or a loosely organized group of enjoyers. Now, if you look on Google Trends, the first bump is in between late February and early March of this year. Like I said, we're in the heyday of this right now. Unless, of course, you're watching this video in the future, after I've already explained this, in which case, welcome to your own kind of Jigo-Kaiwai, I guess. People on Twitter, though, were using Jigo-Kaiwai since at least 2016. However, it's unclear if this Jigo-Kaiwai is the Jigo-Kaiwai that I'm talking about right now. For instance, in the post you're looking at now, someone states that they wish they could pay somebody 2,000 yen to put their head on that person's lap for 10 minutes, to which case somebody volunteers that, yeah, I'd let you do that, and on top of it, I would whisper abuse into your ear. The person considers the offer, but ultimately rejects it, noting that they will be beaten up by the Jigo-Kaiwai menzu. What are these menzu just after doing? I don't know. It could be a sex thing, but it could not. I'm not sure. Regardless of what this means though, it was not a very common use, as I couldn't find many hits at all until 2020 when something like this came up. Which is actually not related at all, because while we are saying here an after group, this is not jigo, but oshigoto ato, or go, I'm not sure, kaiwai, or people who've just finished doing oshigoto, which is a bonus slang here, because oshigoto is a parody of oshigoto, a job, right? But it's work that you do for your oshi. This is pretty well known. There's a Pixiv entry on it, unlike Jigo-Kaiwai. There are uses of it today, and you can find uses of it going back to at least 2008. Think of it as the shigoto that you want to do rather than the shigoto that you have to do. Although some people might say that they have to do oshikatsu too. Once we get to 2023 though, uses of Jigo-Kaiwai increase, but again, the after sex element is not necessarily there. For instance, the post you're looking at here comes from somebody talking about after a concert. And I believe if you go down, they're using Jigo-Kaiwai to mean the people that do things after the event. But I could be wrong, because if you scroll back up, you can see the phrase Jigo-rah. And if you're not familiar, there is a trend in the creation of Japanese slang, Japanese new words, where ra is used as a translation of the English A famous example from a while back was menhera, which is like a mental health which is derogatory, I would not recommend to use it, term to refer to people who you find bothersome or annoying due to mental health issues. Not a nice word, but a very well known one. A Jigo-rah here, I think, is that same thing, given the context of the entire interaction, but in using this to try to find out more about the Jigo-Kaiwai, it turns out that this can also mean ramen, that's where the ra comes from here, that you have after intercourse. And no, this is not like an obscure thing, this is a established term. It was even discussed on some Japanese news show back in 2022.
ことをいたした後に食べるラーメン。ジゴラーの実態を徹底調査。
一見ただラーメンを取っただけに見えるこれらのネステロツイートには共通するあるワードが、それがジゴラー。
ジゴラーうまいよね。ジゴラーこそ至高。
そう、ジゴラー。
Where someone in the interview discusses it as a form of aftercare.
やっぱそのホテルだけでじゃなくてお腹空いてるよねみたいな、じゃあなんか近くにラーメンあるから行こうかとか、なんかそういう感じだったらアフターケアうまいなと思いますね。
そう、今やジゴラーを制する者が恋愛を制する時代。
And indeed, women being interviewed in this say jigo ni to refer to after sex in a way that again shows that this jigo phrase is nothing new at all on its own. And this Jigo-rah thing also has a solid history to it, with Google Trends showing sustained interest since 2022, and I can find tweets using it back to 2015. From what I can tell though, the real bump was in 2018. That's when pictures of ramen start appearing, and if you're like, hey, maybe it's just ramen after something else, this is when absolute statements like this one appear as well, which in this case amusingly prioritize the ramen over the intercourse. So while this does take us again off the track from Jigo Kaiwai, it does show us that quite recently people were inventing slang terms that use Jigo in them. I think that might have primed people for the creation of Jigo Kaiwai. Another combination. Because while we've seen some Jigo Kaiwai appearing through all this data in a way that may be what we're talking about, in early 2025 is when you see this term being used unquestionably to refer to kind of like the after sex crowd. Indeed, in perhaps the strongest evidence, in early 2025 is when we start seeing sex workers, people like soaplands and other forms of mizu shobai, using it online in part of like their advertising. So which caused this term to kind of explode in use in early 2025? Well, again, since I'm working on my own here, I haven't been able to figure out like a specific source point, but I think I have figured out kind of what caused it, and that is sort of a feedback loop on TikTok. Basically, throughout the history of TikTok, there's been a few Japanese trends where you post something in the search bar and that tells you what thing you are. One of the earliest ones that I'm aware of is you type or taipu, which is like your type, and the first thing you get is an example of what your type is. Well, more recently, following the explosion of the word Kaiwai to refer to a group of people that enjoy something since around 2020 or so, people have been searching for Kaiwai on TikTok, and this tells us what Kaiwai they are. So people started searching for Kaiwai on TikTok and posting their results on Twitter, etc. This is called Kaiwai Shindan, or your Kaiwai diagnosis. This process is fairly well recognized, and major influencers on TikTok do Kaiwai Shindan in videos as well. And if you look on Twitter, the first hits that use TikTok and Shindan Kaiwai together in tweets are in March of 2025, which aligns with that bump in the Google Trends data. How does this link to Jigo Kaiwai? Well, if you're posting what Kaiwai you got from this result, an interesting result gets more attention, and the after sex, after intercourse Kaiwai is an interesting result to post about. It's funny, it's amusing. This then created kind of a feedback loop as people on TikTok, especially attractive young people, started putting hashtag Jigo Kaiwai in videos that have nothing to do with intercourse at all. The videos might be sexy, there's often dances, there's often cleavage, but there's no claim or discussion in the video of any sexual activity. Of course, means that when people search for Kaiwai on TikTok, Jigo Kaiwai comes up more and more, which means that more and more people post about how they got Jigo Kaiwai, which influences more people to add Jigo Kaiwai to their videos as hashtags, etc., to get more views, which means that more people will see it when they search for Kaiwai, which means if this continues unabated, we will eventually reach a point when all that exists on the internet is people posting that they are Jigo Kaiwai and making videos that are tagged with Jigo Kaiwai, which, I don't know, there are worse fates for the internet, I guess. Anyway, this whole process has been recognized to the extent that people have made like comedy videos about it, such as this one here, where somebody does the Kaiwai search thing and gets Jigo Kaiwai.
なあなあ、TikTok で界隈って検索してみ。俺は、ジゴ界隈ってやつだ。うわ、お前やばー
They don't know what Jigo Kaiwai means, so they just mean after the thing, and they assume the thing is like playing video games.
ジゴってなんだなんかの後ゲームの後ってことか
This results in some humorous misunderstandings and a kind of who's on first for the modern age.
昨日の夜も眠れなくてさ、マジジゴ。昨日の夜もあれしたのあれエイペックスのことかそうそう、初対面の女子としてたんだけど、全然眠らせてくれなくて。
And while the misunderstanding in that video is, fictional, I should state that a lot of people are confused as to what Jigo Kaiwai means. People post about it quite a lot. And this is because, don't forget, Jigo can just be after anything. Indeed, it's not hard to find people posting Jigo Kaiwai that have nothing to do with sexual activity, as you can see above my face. These may be kind of an intentional joke, as people are saying, haha, I'm misunderstanding the word, but I also think that people just are using it because, it is after a thing. So anything you do when you're done, congratulations, you're Jigo Kaiwai. In the literal sense, at least. So that's basically what happened and what's going on. Currently right in the middle of this kind of storm where people are searching for what Kaiwai they are, finding it funny that they're in the after sex Kaiwai, and this is resulting in people using it on videos that, as commenters often note, have no real relationship to, what the term actually means. And while we have seen uses that clearly are by people that just had or are just pretending to have had intercourse, I should note that this entire thing is dripping with a bit of humor or irony. Indeed, in the video that started this with, a lot of the people that say they are Jigo Kaiwai laugh. Because they know it's funny, they know it's like an embarrassing thing to say in public. They're not actually saying that they just got done sleeping with somebody in a sudden interview just posted online by a major channel and done in the middle afternoon. Unless they did, in which case, I guess, well done. Busy day. Now we, of course, have all entered some form of Jigo Kaiwai because that's about it. I'm done. That is as much explanation as I could find, given that this is happening now. Indeed, this may be one of the first explanations, not just in English, but out on the internet at all, which would be cool. I'm excited to be part of the initial explaining group rather than the people that dig up the history later. It's also one of the easiest Kaiwai to join because, just do something.